What's up everyone, I'm CallumOnToast, and apologies first of all for the lack of content recently. I was away in Portugal for a few days and I just got back to see the new season update was announced. So we've got another video from me with no actual gameplay, but hopefully this one is a bit more interesting to the general audience and it doesn't completely flop in terms of views like my past few videos have done. But anyways, before we get into the move update, let's start with the question of the day. Which move update are you most excited for next season? Now, if you haven't actually seen any of the information at all yet, and this is going to be your first time viewing it, then of course you can hold off on answering this question until after you've seen all the move updates, but let me know in the comment section down below. And with that being said, let's take a look at the new season now. Alright, so here we are. We have the Go Battle League Forever Forward update. We are going to quickly go over the league rotations just because I feel like it doesn't really matter how good a move update is going to be if you have an awful league rotation where by week 3 you're stuck in the Master League or some like single type cup. So we're going to have a look at this, and first of all we've got Great League, Ultra League, Master League, and then all three of them, and it's going to continue like that for the entire of the season. But week 1 we've got the Great League, as I just mentioned, and we've also got the Pokemon North America International Championships 2026 Cup Great League Edition. That's a bit of a mouthful, but that's actually going to go on for 2 weeks. So I'll be honest, I don't imagine many people are going to play it during this first week, just because, you know, Open Great League, we're going to have big move changes. Usually this is what people are going to be playing on that first week, but in the second week, to avoid the Open Ultra League, maybe some people will be playing it, and it is nice to get a new cup. I don't really know much about this cup currently, but we will look and find out what typings are allowed, which Pokemon are banned. Usually there is a huge ban list for these types of cups, which can make it better. Sometimes it just makes it incredibly limited, incredibly limited. Don't know why I can't talk there. So I guess we'll find out when it comes around. But then the week after that, we actually have not the Open Master League, but the the Mega Master League. So that is going to be interesting. I know a lot of people do enjoy that. I actually find it somewhat easier to compete in the Mega Master League compared to just the Open Master League. So that is something where even I can probably make a video or two in that cup. Then we've also got the Sunshine Cup Great League Edition, in case you don't want to play in the Master League at all, which I think is fine. Sunshine Cup, we do have that basically every year. It's not the most exciting meta, but there's a decent amount of typings, so it's not, hopefully it's not going to be too stale, but I guess we'll find out when we get to it. There have obviously been a lot of move updates since the last time we had it, and then obviously all 3 leagues. Then we've got the Summer Cup Great League Edition, so that is not the same as the Sunshine Cup. Then we've got the Ultra League and the Ultra League Fantasy Cup. So first time in a while where we've had a cup in the Ultra League, which I'll be honest, I don't really mind that at all. I've barely played any Ultra League at all recently, just because I feel like there's no reason for me to build a lot of Pokemon for the Ultra League, because there's usually just some sort of Great League Cup that I can be playing in instead. But actually, when they used to have a lot of these cups in the Ultra League, I was actually feeling more sort of encouraged to build random stuff for the Ultra League, because whilst a lot of the Pokemon might not have play in the Open Ultra League, they actually had a lot of play in these limited cups. So Fantasy Cup, obviously we've had this recently in the Great League. It's only Dragon, Fairy and Steel types. It usually does feel fairly limited, so probably is going to still be the case in the Ultra League, but I do like that they're going for something slightly different here. But next up we got the Retro Cup, which I think used to be a really enjoyable cup. These days I don't think it's quite as fun as it used to be. But either way, going to be paired alongside the Master League, so I imagine most people will play the Retro Cup. Then again, all 3 leagues. Then we've got the Great League or the Master Premier Cup, which I'll be honest, Master Premier, people do enjoy this. Obviously no legendaries in the Master League, which is nice, but running it alongside the Open Great League basically means that no one is going to play the Master Premier Cup, which isn't ideal really, because that is the Master League Cup which is going to be most accessible to a lot of free-to-play players. So I think maybe you could trial it alongside the Open Ultra League, but even then I guess people are going to complain saying like, oh, we don't really want to play the Ultra League and the Master Premier Cup, we want a Great League Cup available at all times. But either way, next up we've then got the Weather Cup Great League Edition alongside the Ultra League. Again, this is a cup that we've not had for a while. I actually do remember we had this in the Ultra League at some point a long time ago, but yeah, I believe it's just the typings that Weather Ball can be. But then next up, we've got Master League and Evolution Cup Great League Edition. So again, Evolution Cup is another cup we've not had for a while, so I do enjoy this. Like, it feels like the last few seasons we've just had Fantasy Cup, Jungle Cup, Electric Cup, like the same sort of stuff over and over and over again, which is obviously just not very fun at all. And then finally, we've got the Scroll Cup Great League Edition alongside the Open Great League, and then all 3 cups for another 2 weeks. Although actually, oh my gosh, I did not notice this. We finally have Great League Mega Edition. This is insane because I have almost all Mega Pokemon built for the Great League. I'm honestly going to be overwhelmed with the amount of content that I can build. I'm really hoping that this is not just like a mistake, because like genuinely I have so much stuff built for this, but I'm going to be so disappointed if like they can't somehow make it work or something like that. But yeah, this honestly really exciting. This is going to be the thing that I probably look forward to most. It is going to be the final week of the season as well. But honestly, that is great, like to see the final week of the season actually have something really different and exciting for a change. Usually, I mean, right now, like I don't even care to play the Go Battle League right now, because it's just feeling so samey right now. But yeah, this is really cool. I hope this is not an error. But yeah, obviously also Mega Ultra League, which some people might do. I think honestly there might be more Pokemon that are like easier to power up for the Ultra League than they are for the Great League, just because of how the CP works. When you Mega Evolve, they do often gain quite a lot of CP. But yeah, that's actually really cool. I did not expect that. But then yeah, we got the Forever Forward Go Battle League events, same as this season. Every Thursday you can do 10 sets rather than the usual 5. I do like this change. Unfortunately for me, Thursday's like the worst day they could choose, which is why my streams are quite early in the day, especially if you're from America. You're probably thinking, why the hell are you streaming like in the morning? Unfortunately, I'm just busy every Thursday evening, so yeah, not ideal for me, but still we can try and stick to weekly streams every Thursday for the Go Battle Thursdays. Reward encounters, don't care about that. Don't care about this at all. Time Research Pass, make sure you guys claim this in the shop. I think it's only available for like the first 15 days of the season, then they will remove it. So if you don't claim it early, then you are going to miss out on a ton of Stardust, a lot of fast and charged TMs, and even some elite TMs as well. So definitely go ahead and claim that as soon as the season begins. Other avatar item rewards, I'm sure someone cares about this as it is inspired by Cynthia, but I really just don't care at all. Alright, so here we go, we got the cups, and this is the only one I'm going to look into just because this is a brand new cup. But this is going to be the North America International Championships 2026 Cup. Pokemon must be obviously below 1500 CP. Only Fairy, Normal, Psychic, and Water type Pokemon are eligible, but as you can see there are a ton of Pokemon banned. But not only that, any Pokemon that are also Dark, Grass, or Steel types are also not eligible. Shadow Pokemon are eligible, which I think is a nice change. I think previously Shadow Pokemon have been banned in these cups, which, well, supposedly they've been banned. I think actually when they've tried to implement them in the Go Battle League, they've not figured out how to ban Shadow Pokemon individually, so that is interesting. And then they've actually stated Mega Evolve Pokemon are not eligible, which I think usually they wouldn't have to state, but since we are going to get a Mega Great League at the end of the season, I guess it makes sense to just be very clear and tell you that Mega Pokemon aren't eligible. But yeah, you've got a ton of Pokemon banned here. I'll be honest, I don't really know what this meta is going to look like, but hopefully it is going to be a somewhat interesting one. And then yeah, as I mentioned, for the rest of these cups, like we've had them before, if you do want to find out more, you can just pause the video here as we're scrolling through all of these bits here. Wait, hold up a second. Okay, yeah, they do just say the Master Premier Cup. I thought maybe there'd be information about the Great League, Mega Great League Cup, but nope, there is no information there. Anyways, we got the attack changes, which is probably why you've clicked on this video, so apologies that we've wasted your time up until this point. But Draw Run is going to be reworked, so it's going to go from 80 to 70 power, and it is going to have an energy cost decrease, so this is going to make it in line with the likes of Aqua Jet, Sludge, Psyshock, those types of moves that have recently, well, not that recently, but within the last year, have been buffed, which are all pretty good moves, so I don't mind this change. I don't know if this was necessarily needed, but I don't mind it at all. It's just something reworked is always nice. Flash Cannon is going to have an energy cost decreased, and so is Hurricane. I feel like both of these moves are very underwhelming high energy moves, so this could be quite exciting. We'll have a look at which Pokemon learn these moves, and we're also going to look at sort of what spice picks might be worth investing in for next season if you've not built them yet, or which Pokemon that you've built currently that are just absolutely awful might actually finally get some play next season. So speaking of, we've got Dragon Ascent, which is only for Rayquaza. It looks like it's getting a big rework, going from 150 power to 110, and then energy cost decreased, of course. They're always so vague about that. Please, why can't you just tell us how much energy the move is going to be? But I guess we'll have to just wait and see. But I assume it's going to be quite a significant energy cost decrease, because unfortunately Rayquaza it's kind of been shafted recently with the Dragon Tail rework. Doesn't synergize at all with the Breaking Swipe nerf. And then, of course, Aerial Ace got nerfed fairly recently as well. So yeah, hopefully Dragon Ascent goes all the way down to, say, 45 energy. If it's not 45, if it's still 50, then I honestly don't see any reason why Rayquaza would get any more play next season than this current season. But if it does go down to 45, I believe that would actually be its joint cheapest energy charge move, so that could be quite beneficial for it. Either way, next up we've got Earth Power. Energy cost decreased, so presumably going to go down to 50. I'll be honest, like, I can't think of anyone who's ever complained about Earth Power costing too much energy, so I don't know if this was quite necessary, but we'll have a look at that, see which Pokemon learn Earth Power, maybe look at which Pokemon we think probably might be a little bit too strong after that change. But either way, we then got Gust. Energy generation increased, so this is going to move it in line with the likes of Confusion, which is also a 4-turn fast move. Gust, honestly, feel like it is going to be quite annoying on Pidgeot, but outside of that, I don't think it's going to be too overpowered at all. Then Charm is the big one, going from 13 to 12 power. Honestly, Charm, my least favorite move in the game. Wigglytuff, my least favorite Pokemon in the game. I'm very happy about this nerf. I have seen some people saying like, oh, Wigglytuff didn't need to be nerfed. Yes, it absolutely did. Shut up. You know nothing. Wigglytuff, the most annoying Pokemon in Go Battle League history, in all honesty, in my opinion. I know some people love Wigglytuff, so you guys can just stop watching this video right now, because I don't think you deserve to watch this video. But next up, we got Wrap, which is going to go from 60 to 70 power, so a decent increase there. Obviously, Wrap's never going to be super effective into anything, so I don't mind them making it a slightly better move. We then got another rework here, Energy Ball going from 90 to 80 power, and energy cost decreased. Now, I don't know how much they're going to decrease it by, but honestly, going to 80 power, if they go for 50 energy rather than 55, then it's just going to be a slightly worse version of like Power Whip and Grass Knot. So I could maybe even see them go down all the way to 45 energy. But I guess we'll just have to wait and see. Again, as like I mentioned, I hate that they just don't specify how much energy something is going to be. But then we've got Silverwind going from 60 to 75 power, which is quite significant for a 45 energy charge move, which also does have a 10% chance to boost up your attack and your defense by 1 stage. Obviously, the bug typing is the worst offensive typing in the game. It's resisted by so many different typings, so I really don't mind that change at all. It will be nice to see a few bug types get slightly better next season. And then Earthquake is being restored to what it used to be quite a few seasons ago, so going from 110 to 120 power. Then we've got attack availability updates. We're actually going to look at this slightly later, because we're going to see which Pokemon will benefit from these attack changes first. So we do have a list here. I was just searching up Energy Ball. So let's go for Draw Run first. We'll just go in the order that it is stated in the actual blog post. So Draw Run. I don't know if this list here is going to be completely up to date. Of course, it's not going to show any of the like attack availability updates here from the Go Battle League, because they've not been implemented yet. But let's go all the way down to the bottom. So Carablast is a Pokemon that I really love using, and it's quite nice that Draw Run is now going to be slightly cheaper in energy. Oftentimes, Draw Run, even though it's super effective into steel types, it's not quite enough damage to one-shot them, especially non-stab from a Carablast. So the fact that it will be slightly cheaper energy is actually going to be quite beneficial for it, because you will get to two Draw Runs slightly faster. Then we got Drawbell, which unfortunately was on the receiving end of a double nerf this season, but I've really enjoyed using Shadow Drawbell in the past, so I do think actually buffing Draw Run will help it slightly. Of course, Mud Slap is going to deal less damage, and I believe obviously Rock Tomb dealing less damage as well this season, so Draw Run costing slightly less energy is going to be quite nice for it. Obviously Dunsparce, I don't think it necessarily needed a buff there. But we then got Dugong, which also another Pokemon which I don't really appreciate getting a slight buff, and Fearow as well. Actually, you know what? These 3 Pokemon here, they might be slightly annoying with that slightly spammier draw run, but Beedrill, really fun Pokemon to use. This could be quite exciting. Seeking. Actually, I don't think these movesets are necessarily recommended for PvP. They're just random movesets there. But I forgot that it actually learns Waterfall. It also learns Peck as well, so you definitely don't want to run the Legacy Poison Jab anymore, but you do want double Legacy Draw Run and Icy Wind. Then we've got Alolan Sand Slash, which has somewhat fallen off recently, I guess, so I don't mind that too much. Rapidash could be quite interesting. I think Draw Run would now be its cheapest move, so that could be quite good actually. Draw Run being a 40 energy move would make it in line with Typhlosion or Salazzle in terms of getting to the Charge Reef in just 2 Incinerates. So actually that's a pretty significant update for the Rapidash. We then got Escavalier, which has kind of fallen off a lot since the counter nerf. Of course you do have Bug Bite, but yeah, I don't think Draw Run's going to make a huge difference for it. You then got Lycanroc, which I do think is actually quite an underrated Pokemon, so I'll be quite excited to try that out. And then you've just got Megas, and then you've got Excadrill as the final Pokemon, of course. Mudshot being restored back to what it used to be. This is going to be a very spammy Pokemon with Draw Run. It'll be very similar to the likes of Swampert with Hydro Cannon. So pretty interesting. A lot of cool picks there. A lot of obviously top meta Pokemon as well, which might be slightly annoying with the spamminess of Draw Run next season, but some exciting ones there as well. Next up, we'll look at Flash Cannon, and I don't think this is going to make a huge difference, really. But again, we'll go down to the bottom here. So, Tinkertink, Meltan, Horsea, Ferroseed, these Pokemon are barely usable, so we'll kind of just skip over those. Tinkertuff is different though. Tinkertuff, I think it might have even slightly better stats than Tinkerton. Obviously, there's no reason to run Flash Cannon here since it does learn Gigaton Hammer, which is just a much better move. But if you wanted to run an ABB style team with both Tinkertuff and Tinkerton, then obviously you can run Flash Cannon now on the Tinkertuff, and it's going to be fairly decent. Then we've got Aegislash and Bastiodon. I don't think you'd probably run Flash Cannon on either of these Pokemon. Klefki, you might want to run it just because in certain limited metas, that steel coverage is kind of useful. Now, Blastoise, Turtonator, I don't know if you'd necessarily run Flash Cannon on either of these Pokemon, but it is coverage. It is, I guess, something. Skarmory, very much fallen off recently, so you probably just don't run it anyways. Bronzong has some decent coverage these days with like Weather Ball, Psyshock, Payback as well, so you probably don't run Flash Cannon there either. Same for Galarian Stunfisk, you probably just run Earthquake, which is getting buffed next season, and then Rock Slide for coverage. However, Registeel might see a little bit of a resurgence there with Flash Cannon now costing less energy. Talked about Aegislash already. Ferrothorn could benefit quite a bit from a Flash Cannon rework because I believe it takes quite a few bullet seeds, I can't remember the exact amount, to get to a Flash Cannon, but actually if it takes 5 rather than 6, that could be quite significant for it. Toucannon, you probably just stick to the mono flying type moveset with Peck, Drill Peck, and Beak Blast, but I guess Flash Cannon is coverage. Kling Klang, unfortunately, is pretty useless, so you probably won't run it with Flash Cannon there. Vanillux, also pretty useless there, so we'll probably just skip over that. Magneton, you could actually run it instead of Magnet Bomb, although I think Magnet Bomb is actually a fairly decent move, so maybe you don't, but if you do want a nuke that isn't quite as expensive as Zap Cannon, then maybe you go for Flash Cannon. Could be quite interesting. Mew, you're probably not going to run that at all. Magnezone, maybe, just because Mirror Shot is quite an annoying bait move, which I feel like, you know, when I try and run Mirror Shot, I'm always going for the bait, and it's just not paying off at all. But Flash Cannon, a lot of people maybe just won't expect it, and then, of course, costing less energy could be quite nice for it. Lucario, you're just going to run Meteor Mash, so there's no point in running Flash Cannon there. Empoleon, you could run it, but I think Drill Peck coverage is just going to be better and obviously a lot more consistent, as it does take a lot less energy to get to. Hydreigon, similarly, you probably just run Fly these days, although Flash Cannon is great coverage for Fairy-type Pokemon, so if you do swap out there and you've got a decent energy advantage, the opponent swaps into a Fairy-type, Flash Cannon could at least threaten a shield now. Yeah, I guess you don't even need to necessarily run it, you just have to have the threat of a Flash Cannon to grab a shield potentially. Meteoros, the same thing, you're just not going to run it over Meteor Mash. Zekrom could be interesting coverage for fairies once again. But yeah, I don't think Flash Cannon is going to be too significant there. I think it is just going to be Registeel where you notice it. But next up, Hurricane. This could be quite an interesting one here. It does depend on how much they decrease the energy by. But let's have a look at the Pokemon that learn it. So Cast Form, it is pretty interesting coverage there. Same for Whimsicott. I feel like a lot of Pokemon have it as coverage rather than actually flying type Pokemon that are going to be beneficial here. Vivillon, you got Pelipper. Pelipper actually does use Hurricane, so that could be quite good for it. Swanna, as we'll see, is getting a triple buff, so we'll kind of just skip over it for now. Pidgeot has loads of different moves. It's also learning Twister this season, so I don't know if you necessarily run Hurricane there. Talonflame, you could run it instead of going for Brave Bird if you just don't want to debuff yourself, but you probably do just stick to Brave Bird anyways. Shiftry is a pretty interesting one, similarly to the Ferrothorn, in that it's going to take 4 Snarls now, hopefully, to get to a Hurricane. Sorry, no, not 4, 5 Snarls to get to a Hurricane rather than 6 Snarls. So that could be pretty interesting there. Oricorio, unfortunately, all of these are just really useless. Articuno, Hurricane is Legacy, but that could be pretty interesting. Obviously, did get buffed recently with Powder Snow, so that could be pretty big for it. Noivern, unfortunately, needs a way better fast move there. Frostmoth actually could be pretty cool with Powder Snow. Actually, they're going to be the same moveset as Articuno. Powder Snow, Icy Wind, and Hurricane. That coverage could be very cool. We talked about Talonflame already. Therian Form, Tornadus, you probably won't run it over the Bleakwind Storm, but actually the Incarnate Form, well, actually, unfortunately, the fast move options are just really bad, but you do have Gust here on the Therian Form, so that's a double buff there for the Therian Form. Could be pretty interesting. Volcarona, another Pokemon where it's just coverage, but I do think you'd probably just prefer like Solar Beam for coverage there. And then Yveltal, you probably run Oblivion Wing, I guess you could run both, but yeah. Another Pokemon that will also learn Gust, by the way. Dragonite, you could actually run Hurricane now, which would be quite interesting. Rayquaza, again, another buff there, but that is Legacy. And it is also getting a buff with Dragon Ascent, so you probably don't run it. And then these are just Megas and Shadows. But yeah, a few Pokemon that are quite interesting to look at there. Next up, we've got Earth Power, which I don't think necessarily needs a buff, but let's have a look. So, Earth Power on Toedscool, Silicobra, Sandygast, I guess, could be quite cool here. Sandygast did get buffed recently with Sand Tomb. You got Dolive, and I believe it's Evolution. The entire Evolution line learns Earth Power, so that is quite nice. Palpitoad, which I have recently built, so I'm quite happy about that, so that's cool. Claydol, I think, could be a little bit annoying with Earth Power, although it learns Scorching Sands already, so I don't think it probably makes a huge difference at all, actually. Camerupt, similar thing, actually, already learns Scorching Sands, so Earth Power, Scorching Sands, I don't know which one is going to be slightly better, actually. Gastrodon, obviously got nerfed this season, not as common as it used to be, but then Earth Power, costing less energy, will help it out slightly. Palossand, similar to the Sandygast there. Nidoqueen could actually benefit quite a lot from this, as you do have some decent fast move options. You can run Poison Sting and Earth Power maybe, or you could still run Mud Slap. You got Arboliva, as I mentioned. Sandaconda, this is going to be quite a decent buff for it because Earth Power unfortunately does take quite a while to get to with Mud Slap. Nidoking could benefit quite a lot from this as well. You could run Fury Cutter as a fast move there. And then got Flygon, Enamorous, Therian Form. Already has some pretty decent coverage. I believe it's got Mystical Fire and Earth Power. Could be quite interesting. Hippowdon as well. Rillaboom, unfortunately, is just still pretty useless. Golett, currently you'd run Dynamic Punch exclusively. I think you probably still run Dynamic Punch over Earth Power just for slightly different coverage. But it is an option, I guess. Aerodactyl could benefit quite a lot, actually, because it does learn Dragon Breath nowadays, so it'll get to the Earth Power relatively quickly. Volcanion will benefit quite a lot because currently, I believe you'd run it with Scald, which is a 50 energy move, and then Earth Power as well, which would be another 50 energy charge move. Could be quite nice for it. Heatran going to benefit a decent amount from that as well. We've already gone through Camerupt. Landorus Incarnate Form. This is kind of good for it, since obviously whilst there was a mistake where it could learn the Sandsear Storm, you could only catch one of them during like the build up to Go Fest several years ago. So if you caught the Shadow one recently and you built that like I have done, then obviously Earth Power is going to be a pretty big plus for it. And then Garchomp as well, similar thing. I believe it learns... Does it learn Scorching Sands? Actually, no, I don't think it does. So maybe Earth Power for Garchomp. That is its Community Day moves, though. So if you don't have it with that already, then unfortunately there's going to be an Elite TM. But that is quite a nice one. But yeah, some interesting Pokemon there. Let's have a look at the next one, Gust. So hardly any Pokemon learn Gust, apparently. But Vivillon, which is also a Pokemon that learns Hurricane. Actually, let me just click on this separately, see what moves it learns. It also learns Energy Ball, so this Pokemon is getting a triple buff next season, which is very interesting. So I actually don't even have this Pokemon at all. I don't open gifts very often, so I don't bookmark postcards or whatever the heck it is that you do to get Scatterbugs. But that is actually pretty interesting, so I'll definitely be taking a look at that Pokemon next season. Pidgeot also getting triple buff next season. Let's just quickly look into that. With Gust, it's also got Hurricane, and then it's gaining access to Twister as well. It did also get buffed this season with Heat Wave. But then, yeah, we got Staraptor, which was its Community Day move. So, unfortunately, it got buffed recently with Wing Attack. So, most people have probably, if they've got a Staraptor built, probably switched over to Wing Attack. And now you'd have to use an Elite TM back to Gust, which would be pretty annoying, unfortunately. But that is just how it is. And then you've also got Yveltal there, which, as we already mentioned, is getting buffed with Hurricane. You probably don't run that over Oblivion Wing, but let's just have a look to see. Yeah, you probably don't run Hurricane over any of these other charge moves, just because they do give alternate coverage. And honestly, you might not even run Gust over Sucker Punch. I believe Sucker Punch is an exact clone of Gust. It's just a 2-turn fast move rather than a 4-turn fast move. So you've got a slightly more freedom with Sucker Punch when you're using that. But it could be useful. Let's not write it off. But then next up, we've got Charm. So we're just going to skip over this because I don't really care too much. You guys already know the Pokemon with Charm. They're really annoying to deal with. Wrap, we're going to go for instead. So Wrap. Oh, I don't know why there's 3 options for Wrap here. I don't know what that means. But Wrap, mostly like snake Pokemon actually that learn Wrap, which makes sense. You probably don't have any of these Pokemon built, but I've got a Dratini built, which is pretty rubbish to be honest, but it does learn... what the hell are we looking at here? Where am I looking at the... Why does it not show the moves here? Oh, I've just clicked on Dragon Breath by accident. That's my bad. What was I trying to click on? Dratini, that's the one. Yeah, so it does learn Twister, Wrap, and Aqua Tail. You probably just run Twister and Aqua Tail for the coverage that it provides. And obviously you've got Stab on Twister, so it probably doesn't make a huge difference there. Bellsprout, one of the worst Pokemon I've ever built, so hopefully it is going to be slightly more usable next season. You got Lickitung, which doesn't see much play these days, but I guess could be slightly better next season if you run it with Wrap. Servine is actually a really bulky Pokemon, so this could be quite interesting for it. Let's have a look quickly at its moveset. You probably run Vine Whip, Wrap, and a Grass Knot. You've also got Dragonair, which is going to be pretty strong next season, I'd imagine. Toedscool as well, which is slightly worse with Mudslap, of course, this season, but still decent. You then got Seviper, which you probably don't run Wrap, just because you've already got Poison Fang, and then you can run Crunch for coverage. But you got Milotic, and this is actually going to be a pretty strong Pokemon next season then, I'd imagine, with Waterfall obviously getting reworked fairly recently. Oh, I've clicked on Waterfall again. With Milotic getting Waterfall rework recently, and then you've got Wrap, and you've got Aqua Tail, which is going to be very spammy. So that could be pretty strong. And then you got Sandaconda, which I've already mentioned, getting buffed with Earth Power as well. So that could be pretty decent. Dalmise, honestly, that could be quite nice for it. Astonish as well, if you run it with Astonish for some big fast food pressure. Typically, I think you would run Shadow Claw, but actually Astonish, Wrap, and then maybe Shadow Ball or Brutal Swing could be a very strong combination. And then finally got Shadow Milotic as well. So yeah, some decent ones there. Not too many options for Wrap, but still, let's have a look. We then got Energy Ball, which, like I mentioned, if they do make it just 50 energy, then it's probably not going to be that significant. But let's have a look. So there's actually a lot of Pokemon here. Let's just go for show 100. Alright, so basically all of these Pokemon are completely irrelevant. I mean, I do have a Fungus built, but it's an awful Pokemon. Similar to Hisuian Voltorb, I do have this Pokemon built, but it's just not very good. But let's keep on scrolling here. And Esper, I guess, is a fairly usable Pokemon. Snover could benefit a lot because it does not have access to Weather Ball, so Energy Ball would now be its cheapest charge move. And I do have a Snover built. Jumpluff has not really seen much play recently, so that could be quite beneficial for Jumpluff. Swadloon, if any crazy person has built Swadloon, this is a very bulky bug type Pokemon. And yeah, Energy Ball once again. I believe it also learns Silver Wind, so that's getting a double buff there. Castform, as we've already mentioned, getting a double buff with both Hurricane and Energy Ball. Bayleaf, again, another really bulky Pokemon in there, and that is going to be quite a nice buff for it. We then got Dolive, another Pokemon getting double buffed with Earth Power as well. Lampent, that is pretty interesting. It's going to learn Ember, Heat Wave, and Edge Ball, which is nice coverage for it. And then we've got Wormadam, Dartrix, nice buff there. I think currently you run Seed Bomb, but Seed Bomb just isn't a great charge move, so Energy Ball probably would be preferred there, even though it does cost more energy. As we mentioned already, Vivillon getting a triple buff next season. Let's have a look. Chimecho could be pretty interesting. I believe it's got Astonish, but you probably run Astonish, Psyshock, and Shadow Ball, however, but could be interesting, I guess, in the Championship Series Cup, as Psychics are allowed and Water types are allowed, so you might want to run Energy Ball for the coverage. But anyways, you've also got Ninetales, which did get Energy Ball as its Community Day move recently, so that's going to be interesting. Galvantula as well could be a very nice coverage into like the ground type Pokemon, which typically do very strong into the Ninetales. You've got Hisuian Electrode, Appleton, Excelgor. This is actually big for it because currently Energy Ball is already its cheapest energy charge move, and it's 55 energy. So if this went to 45, honestly, Excelgor could be pretty fun to try out. Still wouldn't be completely useless, but still could be at least somewhat fun to try. We then got Ludicolo, which could benefit quite a lot from this, so that you don't have to just full send a Leaf Storm if you want to deal grass type damage. We've already mentioned Galvantula. Abomasnow can benefit from this as well. Carnivine could be interesting. Decidueye, you're never going to run that over, of course, the Frenzy Plant, and then here you're not going to run it over Trailblaze for the Hisuian version. Similar for Chestnut, you're not going to run that over Frenzy Plant. And then Chandelure for coverage could be pretty good, but now that Shadow Ball costs 50 energy, I can't really see any reason to run it unless they did make it 45 energy, in which case maybe you could even drop Flame Charge altogether and run Energy Ball for coverage with Shadow Ball. That could be quite interesting. Zarude getting a buff there for anyone who's built an Ultra League or Master League Zarude. And then Shaman, Skyform, I think it only learns grass type charge moves, but still this is a buffer, I guess. And I did build one recently on a live stream where it just kept on coming up as my like auto-rect party, so eventually I caved in and double moved it, even though I believe, yes, it does only learn grass type moves. Yeah, so yeah, but that is going to be its cheapest charge move, though, I guess on par with Grass Knot, so I guess it doesn't really benefit that much unless it does become a 45 energy move. But then next up we've got Silverwind, so it's going to be mostly bug type Pokemon here that learn Silverwind. But there are a few random other Pokemon that do. So let's scroll down. We've got Ladybug, which is same as Swaddle, Finneon. These Pokemon don't have the stats at all. But you've got Dustox, which is an XL Pokemon. Ledian, which is getting a triple buff next season as well. Swadloon, as we've already mentioned. Yanma, a lot of XL Pokemon here. A lot of them that I do actually have built already. Luminion is getting a double buff next season, but for non-stab moves. So it'll be interesting to see if you would run, say, Gust on Luminion, or if you just stick to running Waterfall. Beautifly, unfortunately, pretty useless. Venomoth could be quite interesting. And then you've also got Livani and Masquerain. So yeah, not too many big changes here for Silverwind. I think this is just going to take pretty useless Pokemon and make them slightly more usable. But next up, we've got Earthquake. So this is going to be the last one, and then we'll look at the attack availability updates. So it looks like they are buffing both Earthquake and Earth Power, so maybe they feel like Ground needs to be stronger offensively after the Mud Slap nerf, which is quite interesting. But anyways, let's go show. We'll just make it show 200. I don't know how many Pokemon there are going to be. So Bonsly. I guess some of you might have this Pokemon built. Yeah, unfortunately, Rock Throw. I believe it learns Counter as well, which obviously got nerfed like a while back now. But could be an interesting baby Pokemon Spice. You got Krokorok, which doesn't have access to either Sand Tomb or Brick Break, so that is actually pretty good for the Krokorok to have Earthquake just dealing a little bit more damage. Diggersby you've got, which I think you could run it with Earthquake, I guess, now, as it will obviously hit a lot harder than the Scorching Sands. You got Doug Trio, which learns Mud Bomb, which got reworked last season, so maybe you want to try and run it with a Nuke move instead. Not really sure. Marowak, you're probably just not going to run that over Bone Club. Clodsire probably doesn't really need a buff, but Earthquake is, at the moment, the typical charge move that you would run. Claydol as well, it's got so many different charge moves. You probably prefer to run Scorching Sands or Earth Power if you're going to run a Ground-type charge move, but you might actually just want coverage instead. Torkoal could be quite interesting. I believe you'd probably, at the moment, prefer to run Solar Beam just for some coverage into Water-type Pokemon. You've got Mudbray, which currently kind of useless. Licky, which didn't really need a buff, but I guess it's now getting a buff with Earthquake as well. Quagsire, similarly, didn't need a buff, but you don't really run Earthquake on Quagsire, so I guess now it's got some nuke potential as well, which we didn't really need for it. Orthworm, you got Sudowoodo. Fortress, another Pokemon that didn't really need a buff, but I think you will probably just stick with Sand Tomb there, especially if you're running Bug Bite as the fast move. Maybe with Volt Switch, you might want to go for Earthquake instead, not really sure. Kangaskhan could be quite interesting, did get buffed recently with Low Kick. A Alolan Dugtrio, similar to the regular version. Mud Bomb got reworked, so maybe you want to run Earthquake, but honestly, probably not. Steelix, another Pokemon that didn't really need to be buffed. Bouffalant, you got Politoed. Politoed, it is unfortunately a legacy. Camerupt, again, you probably just run either of its cheaper energy charge moves that are the ground typing. Galarian Stunfisk could make it see a little bit more play again. Regice for some coverage there. People aren't really going to run Regice anyways. Meganium, unfortunately, just lack of coverage into flying types, but Earthquake being buffed is going to be slightly better for it, I guess. We've got Gastrodon, as we've already mentioned. Tauros, which unfortunately in this form is pretty useless. Walrein could benefit quite a lot from this, as well as Avalugg. You got Regirock for coverage again. Sandslash, I think, learns Scorching Sands and maybe even Sand Tomb as well, so you probably don't run Earthquake there. You've got Armored Mewtwo, which is quite interesting. Snorlax, kind of fallen off recently. Sceptile, maybe run it with Earthquake now. Nidoqueen, we've already mentioned, you probably just run Earth Power instead. Gliscor, similarly, you're going to run Sand Tomb or Earth Power. Actually, no, it doesn't learn Earth Power. What am I talking about? Zygarde, let's see. There's quite a lot of Pokemon that learn Earthquake, actually. You've got Flygon, but again, a lot of these Pokemon, they just already have cheaper ground-type moves. Swampert could benefit. Obviously, at the moment, I think Sludge is typically the preferred secondary charge move to run. So maybe you do want to run Earthquake instead next season. Got Golem, Donphan, you're probably not going to run. Hippowdon, again, another Pokemon with cheaper ground-type moves. Heracross, maybe you try it, but at the moment, I think you just go for Upper Hand and Rock Tomb as coverage. Tyrantrum could be somewhat interesting there, but likely not very. Rhydon, not great. Shadow Nidoking, another one that's just got cheaper moves anyways. Metagross, this is quite significant for. So that is a nice change for it, especially since Bullet Punch got nerfed this season. You then got Terrakion, which you're probably not going to run with Earthquake. Torterra, again, probably not going to run it with Earthquake anyways. A lot of these Pokemon, you just probably aren't going to run with Earthquake. So yeah, you might want to run Earthquake on Shadow Ho-Oh actually, if you want coverage there, or if you just don't want to use, or I was going to say you don't want to use Elite TM on Sacred Fire, but actually Earthquake is also Legacy, so I guess it doesn't really matter there. And then yeah, again, a lot of these Pokemon, they just have cheaper moves anyways, so it's not going to make a huge difference there. Probably only really the Stunfisk, Galarian Stunfisk, that's going to make a significant difference there. But either way, that is going to be it for the attack availability, the attack changes. Now let's look at the availability updates. So firstly, we've got Sliggoo, which is gaining access to Dragon Breath. It's also going to gain access to Body Slam as well. So now it's going to be another usable mid-stage evolution Dragon-type Pokemon, which is nice. All I want to say is actually, with the attack availability update, something that I do miss from seasons, like past seasons that we've had. They've not really done it for a while, which I think is quite unfortunate. But when they give like a new Pokemon a new move, for example... let's go with Aromatisse, gonna learn Fairy Wind. I really like when they also add the same move to its pre-evolution as well, which obviously doesn't matter a lot of the time, but sometimes, say for example, I mean, I don't actually know if these pre-evolutions learn any of these moves, so I guess it doesn't necessarily make too much sense to say that the Timber and the Gerda should also learn Force Palm, because they probably actually just don't learn it in the main series games. But you kind of get what I'm saying. Like, it is nice for someone who's built a lot of XL Pokemon to see not only the full, or like the third stage evolution getting a move update, but also its entire evolution line. But anyways, we got Pidgeot learning Twister, and actually Pidgeotto already learns Twister, so of course it doesn't matter there. I don't think you probably run Twister anyways, but maybe there's going to be certain limited metas where there's quite a lot of Dragon-type Pokemon where Twister is actually quite useful. Mantine, this is actually going to be its cheapest move, I guess, alongside Bubble Beam, and Bubble Beam is just a really jarring move to use when both you're using it and when you're going up against it, so Twister is definitely just a benefit there. We then got Thunder Punch added to Kecleon and Lopunny. I guess for Kecleon it's quite nice because it does also already learn Thunder, I believe. But Thunder Punch obviously just way cheaper in energy. Lopunny already learns Fire Punch, Triple Axle, so it's got some elemental coverage already. And I believe Lopunny later on is also learning Shadow Ball as well, which I think Shadow Ball is going to be a much bigger update for it compared to Thunder Punch. But still, Thunder Punch, I guess it's there to make it harder for you to get Shadow Ball on your Lopunny through regular charge DMs. But then we already mentioned Aromatisse and Sylveon both gaining access to Fairy Wind, which is quite nice because, of course, Charm getting nerfed. Both of these Pokemon are Charm users, and Aromatisse actually going to be slightly more, I guess, diverse in terms of its move pool with, I believe, Psyshock, which it gained access to a few seasons ago. It's also got Flamethrower and Thunderbolt as coverage, as well as Dazzling Gleam. So honestly, Aromatisse is pretty interesting. Sylveon obviously also does have that Psyshock for coverage, but I guess when you're running Aromatisse, you kind of just don't know what to expect for that secondary charge move. And then next up, we got Kecleon also gaining access to Dynamic Punch. So at the moment, it's got Thunder Punch, as we just looked at. It's got Foul Play, I believe, Ice Beam, Thunder, as we mentioned already, Flamethrower as well, I think. So it's got quite a lot of different coverage moves there, similar to the Lopunny, but that's going to be quite interesting. And then Melmetal, I think this is pretty good for it because Superpower, especially when you've got like a really like fast charging, fast move, you get to those superpowers really quickly, but then you debuff yourself, so it's not really ideal throwing them back to back. Whereas obviously running Dynamic Punch, yes, it's going to cost slightly more energy, it's not as efficient of a charge move, but you're not debuffing yourself, so that is quite nice for it. Now, we've already spoiled this one slightly, but Conkeldurr gaining access to Force Palm. This is going to be really nice for it. It does have quite a few decent options for charge moves. It's got Dynamic Punch, it's got Brutal Swing, it's got Stone Edge. Probably some other stuff that I can't think of. Let me have a look quickly. It also, let's see. Actually, no, that's basically it. Brutal Swing, Dynamic Punch, Stone Edge. You could run Focus Blast as well, but that's going to be way too much energy. But yeah, that is still pretty good coverage there. Sorry, this is my thumbnail. What am I clicking on? This is the one that I'm looking for. And then we got Zapdos and Quaquaval both learning Low Kick. This is really nice. This is actually, I believe Quaquaval I mentioned recently, a Pokemon that I'd love to see get a fighting type fast move instead. And so now, yeah, obviously having Low Kick is going to be nice. And then Galarian Zapdos, both the other Galarian birds gained or got buffed this season with their fast moves with Psycho Cut and Wing Attack. So it's nice that Galarian Zapdos is now also going to get buffed after Counter obviously got nerfed a good few seasons ago now. But speaking of the Counter nerf, Ledian is a Pokemon that currently runs Counter as its preferred fast move, but as we will see later on, is going to learn both a new charge move in Acrobatics, which is a really strong fly type move, as well as a fast move. Lumineon, as we did mention already, going to gain access to Gust. However, this is non-stab, so I don't know if you would run it over Waterfall. I guess it depends on the meta. If there are a lot of water type Pokemon, or maybe even also grass type Pokemon, then actually having Gust for coverage could be quite nice for it. We then got Swanna also learning Gust. This is pretty big for it because at the moment its choices are Water Gun and Air Slash, which are both just really underwhelming fast moves. And this is not the only buff, as we've already seen. It does learn Hurricane, and you will see it also learn a new charge move that we will get onto later on. Now, Seismitoad, I believe this Pokemon also learns Earth Power, so gaining access to Icy Wind going to be very nice, a nice double buff for it. And of course, Mudshot did get reworked back to what it used to be this season as well. So basically a triple buff if you include this season's move updates as well. We already mentioned Body Slam here. I think even with Dragon Breath and Body Slam, its charge move options aren't great. It's going to be like Muddy Water, Sludge Wave. I actually can't think what else this Pokemon learns. Let's have a look. Dragon Pulse as well. So I guess you maybe you run Dragon Pulse then as the secondary charge move, or you run Sludge Wave for coverage. It also learns Water Pulse. So yeah, I don't know. I guess it depends on the meta really. Now, Gigalith learning Lock On. That is really interesting to me because at the moment it learns Smackdown or Mud Slap, both of which have been nerfed recently. So let's have a look at Gigalith. So currently you've got Superpower, Solar Beam, Meteor Beam, Rock Slide, and Heavy Slam. So with Lock On, you're going to get to Superpower incredibly fast, and actually you still get to Meteor Beam relatively quickly there, boosting up your attack stat every single time you throw it. Meteor Beam actually one of the best charge moves in the game as well, so maybe you run that, or you just run Rock Slide for like crazy fast spam, but also stab damage, and then you could also run Solar Beam as well. So that's going to be interesting to take a look at. Obviously, you're not going to have any fast move pressure whatsoever, but being able to spam incredibly hard-hitting charge moves could be very fun. Now, this is the other move update that we mentioned for Ledian gaining Rollout. So honestly, Rollout plus Acrobatics plus Dynamic Punch is going to make Ledian actually a really strong Pokemon next season. So I might have to take it off the like XL Spice roster, because honestly, this might not even be spicy at all next season. It might be top meta. However, it is of course still a bug and fly type Pokemon, one of the worst typings in the game, unfortunately. So I don't think it's ever going to be like overpowered. It's very easy to beat this Pokemon, but still could be quite interesting for it. Next up, we got Starmie learning Arc Jet, which I think is a really nice change for this Pokemon, because unfortunately Surf just a little bit too slow to get to these days. It gets outpaced by a lot of Pokemon, but actually I do really enjoy running Shadow Starmie with Psywave. Those Psywaves just absolutely shred through Pokemon, and then being able to obviously spam Arc Jets a little bit faster than Surf is really going to help it out. Similar for Kabutops, you now have the choice of running Mudshot or Legacy. Well, actually, you can run Waterfall as a fast move with Aqua Jet, which could be very strong. You can also run Legacy Fury Cutter. So this Pokemon has now a lot of options, and Aqua Jet is by far its best charge move now. I believe also its cheapest energy charge move. And then you could run maybe Ancient Power, Stone Edge, Probably Stone Edge, maybe, just for some slightly harder hitting charge move damage there. But then here we go, Swanna. Third move update for Swanna is going to be learning Aqua Jet. So this Pokemon now going to be running Gust, Aqua Jet, and Hurricane. That is actually a really strong moveset for next season. So Swanna, one of the worst Pokemon I've ever built. I actually built it for the Little Cup for some reason. I actually can't really remember why I built it. I'm trying to think, what reason would I have built a Swanna for? But I guess I've built one, so that's going to be quite fun. Then we've got Kingdra gaining access to Surf. This is going to be really nice for it because, man, Octazooka, honestly, the worst charge move in the game in terms of how fun it is both to use and how fun it is to go up against. Feels like if you're using it and you don't get the debuff, it is literally the worst move ever, and yet somehow whenever Kingdra is using Octazooka, it seems to get that debuff every single time, and it's really frustrating. But next up we got a few Pokemon learning Shadow Ball. So Xatu, this is going to be really nice for it because it does have Peck and Psyshock, both really good moves, but its coverage moves, unfortunately, for Xatu are just really underwhelming, and I do actually have a level 50 Xatu. I think it might be a Shadow Xatu as well, built for the Ultra League, so I'm excited to try that out. Quillfish also learning Shadow Ball. That is quite nice for it. Of course, the Hisuian version, is it Hisuian? Hisuian Quillfish? Yeah, I think it's Hisuian. I don't know, that doesn't sound right to me, but I think it is the Hisuian version. Also learns Shadow Ball, but of course, now the regular version is also going to learn it. Lopunny, as we already mentioned. Shadow Ball, I think this is going to be really nice because, well, I mean, Thunder Punch as well. Previously, just this Pokemon, whilst it's got pretty decent stats, just walled by stuff like Jellicent, super hard. So now you've got access to potentially Shadow Ball or Thunder Punch. You can hit for super effective damage. That will actually flip that matchup to make it pretty positive for the Lopunny. And then Sylveon actually also learning Shadow Ball. So we did mention, obviously, gaining access to Fairy Wind. It's already got access to Psyshock. And so, yeah, Shadow Ball actually going to be very nice coverage for it. And then finally, we got Rhyperior, which is going to gain access to Drauron. Drauron, of course, was reworked this season. Still has either Mud Slap or Smackdown as fast moves, which both got nerfed this season, so it's not going to quite return to its former glory, but still, it is going to be slightly more usable than it has been this season. So that is at least something for those of you that played the Master League. But yeah, that's going to be it for the move update. Let me know which Pokemon you're going to be most excited to use next season. Let me know which Pokemon you're maybe too afraid to use because it is still going to be quite spicy, but you would love to see me feature on the channel and build myself, as I am obviously going to be really excited to build a ton of new Pokemon for next season, or just use Pokemon that I've already built with new move updates. So let me know in the comment section down below. But yeah, that's going to be wrapping it up for this video. So that's going to be it for today's video. If you did enjoy it, please make sure you leave a like, leave a comment letting me know, and as well, don't forget to respond to the question of the day if you haven't done so already. And if you want to see more content like this in the future, make sure you hit that subscribe button and turn on post notifications. That way you'll be notified whenever I upload a new video. Now, if you want to take your support to the next level, you can become a channel member with perks including early access to new videos, shoutouts at the end of each video, custom loyalty badges, and custom emojis to use in the comments of every video. I want to say a massive thank you to everyone that has become a channel member already. Your support is greatly appreciated. And with that being said, thank you so much for watching today's video, and I hope you have a great rest of your day.